Good evening, and welcome to the 185th celebration of Convocation for the Williston Northampton School. As we gather tonight for this formal event, it's worthwhile to reflect on why we do so. Convocation marks the ceremonial opening of the school and is part of our long and notable history. And though it may seem like a lifetime away, Convocation is mirrored by the ceremonial closing of the school, which occurs at our baccalaureate ceremony the evening before commencement. These twin events at the opening and closing of our year call upon us to honor the mission of our school, both in words and deeds, as we strive to live with purpose, passion, and integrity. So as we begin our ceremony tonight, we pause and reflect on our history. As you know, the Williston Northampton School takes its name from two schools, Williston Academy and the Northampton School for Girls, which merged in 1971. The Angelus was presented to the Northampton School for Girls by their student council in 1952. It fast became the beating heart of their campus and is now permanently installed on the lawn of our residential quad. On the Angelus is inscribed the words, "For quiet thought." Originally, it was sounded each afternoon as the young women of the Northampton School for Girls, along with their teachers, paused for a moment of silent reflection. Today, we ring the Angelus at the opening and closing of each school year. As an institution devoted to fostering global engagement through thoughtful pursuit of knowledge, we can all appreciate the sentiments embraced by countless numbers of our alumni who have been stirred by the reverberation of this joyful bell. As we now sound the Angelus, I invite you to join me in a few moments of quiet thought. Thank you.
You guys look great out there. You dressed up well. I know you're probably getting a little tired of seeing Mr. Hill in front of a microphone this first week, but welcome everyone, as Mr. Korakowski said, to the 185th opening session of the Williston Northampton School. You know, it's hard for me anyway to picture the school in 1841 that Sam and Emily Williston founded, but they founded it because they wanted to provide an education for those who didn't have one, had no opportunity for an education. I like to think that that spirit lives on very strongly today. To you students, for just completing your first week of Williston, I hope you're beginning to feel at home, but I know it takes a number of days and weeks to figure things out. And just as a reminder, all of us here are here for you to help you out with that. I want to give a special welcome to Brendan Helwig, class of 2014, who will be our keynote speaker, and there'll be more on Brendan later. Thanks for getting up here, Brendan. Quite a travel schedule. The last time we gathered here, or at least roughly out here, sort of over there, was at commencement under the big tent, and my send-off message to the class of 2025 was to be DIY students. Do the hard work yourself. Today we convene, as Mr. Korakowski said, with a long-standing academic tradition. It dates back to the Renaissance. And the class of 2026, the awesome class of 2026, coming together like this for you and all of us, we are literally and figuratively forming our community for the school year. We are a school of over 500 students from about 25 different countries and over 20 different United States. The building blocks and spirit, what I like to call the magic of Williston, are sitting all around you. And you saw that in full view at Fishbowl today. Each of you comes with a unique background and has a story to tell. Each of you brings a singular perspective to Williston. Each of you will offer different contributions throughout the year. How we choose to live at Williston as a community, and this goes for everybody, has so much to do with all of the little choices and actions we make and take. Yes, there will inevitably be those big stage moments, but the year will be defined by the sum of its parts, not by one speaker or dance or championship game, as inspiring as those all might be. Saying that means that each of us has a part to play, and just because you were here last year or the year before does not determine your role this year. Take you seniors for a minute, class of 2026. Your Williston year might seem to fly by for a number of you, and then off you go to college, entering a completely new environment. 4 years after that, whether it's a job or more school, you'll be in an entirely new community. So too, we are all currently replanting ourselves, because at the very least, we are all a little bit older and hopefully a bit wiser than we were last year. This year, as you've already heard me say, my mantra is to be fully engaged as humans. I invite you to extend yourself and take a chance more intentionally. Perhaps those new friendships and trusting relationships among peers and adults will follow. After all, building a community should not be left to chance. It cannot be trusted to the fates. To illustrate what I mean, let me offer a brief personal example. Mrs. Hill and I are becoming more familiar with Hancock, Maine, not so far from Bar Harbor, for those who know that part of the beautiful state. We bought a home there a few years ago. Your families probably have their own stories to share, that determining where you live is not a simple thing. You actually take quite a big leap of faith when you move to a new location for a school or a job or whatever. If you assume that a Williston-like level of belonging will greet you wherever you go, ready-made, like your favorite takeout order, then you could be in for a real surprise. Your dream location could in reality become a nightmare if you have neighbors that don't like dogs and terrorize it with a broom. That actually happened to us when we lived in a different state. Or your 5th grade daughter is so angry that you moved her from her grandparents that for 3 years she refused to call your house a home and referred to it as a biological holding facility. Fortunately for Mrs. Hill and me, our neighbors in Maine welcomed us with open arms from the very start. They were excited that someone, anyone, was moving into a house that had been unoccupied for 2 decades, as it turned out. But in thinking back, maybe I actually had to pass a hidden test in order to become fully welcomed. My neighbor, Dave, is an engineer by training and a lobster fisherman as a hobby. He and his wife keep about 10 lobster traps, and one day he invited me to go along with him to empty them out. I don't know the first thing about lobstering except what I've seen on Greatest Catch, and so I pictured big waves and lots of gear. So I guess in hindsight, I was taking a bit of a risk when I said, sure, I'll go. It turns out that the excursion was just in a bay behind his house, not some 20 miles offshore in windswept waves. And while my neighbor did all of the heavy lifting of pulling up the color-coded buoys with about 15 feet of rope attached to the lobster cage, and they measure about 3 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet, they got to be 50 pounds. He did have me dive right into the business of extracting lobsters and securing the bands around their claws. Lobster fishing is heavily regulated in Maine by minimum size and by kind. For instance, if you find an egg-bearing female, you must notch the tail and throw it right back in. Same if they're too small. So I learned a bit about conserving fisheries along the way. And if you've never seen a live lobster, they have 2 differently designed claws, one for cutting and one for chomping. I don't recommend testing either of those on your hands. Dave hauled up the traps, which contained anywhere from 0 to 4 lobsters, and many of those that I measured were too small to keep. Until we got to the final trap, which happened to be closest to his dock. For this one, he asked me to bring it up, figuring that after watching him haul up 9 traps, I could at least pull my weight and do 1. Now I admit, I am not the largest human being, but I think I'm reasonably fit. And so straining away to pull up that final trap of the day was not doing a lot for my ego or the dialogue in my head, wondering what Dave must have thought of his new neighbor from Western Massachusetts. But then the trap broke the surface of the water. And as I grunted and groaned to haul it over the gunwale of the boat, imagine my reaction when I saw that this trap was packed with lobsters. There must have been a dozen. So after congratulating myself on the big haul, doing a little dab for the camera and hollering, "What a catch," I noticed Dave chuckling away, laughing, laughing, laughing. As it turns out, the last trap was his collection cage, where he stashed all of the previous day's catch so they'd be fresh for the weekend. So the joke was squarely on me, and I thought it was a pretty good stunt. So my takeaway was an insight into my neighbor's great sense of humor, a little bit of Down East Maine knowledge of lobstering, and 6 super fresh lobsters for our family, all for taking a little bit of an initial risk of saying yes. It's been 3 years since that auspicious beginning, and the Hill family and the Percontis have become good friends. And so I'd like to think that if all of us here today apply a little of Dave's good-natured humor and generosity, along with a willingness for a little adventure, Williston will bloom with possibilities for you. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite up Class President Alex Landon for his comments. Am I going the right way? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Hill and Coach K. Good evening, Williston faculty, students, members of the Board of Trustees, and everyone else joining us tonight. It is an honor and a pleasure to be standing here in front of you all. First, I'd like to welcome all the new students who arrived on our beautiful campus this week. You've just stepped into a place that will challenge you, surprise you, and if you let it, it will change you in ways you can't yet imagine. And to the returning students, welcome back to the place we are lucky to call home. Before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank all the people that helped to make this special event possible. To Physical Plant, Sage Dining, and every single person who worked behind the scenes, thank you. To the faculty and students who made our opening week run so smoothly, your effort matters more than you know. And of course, I want to give a huge shout out to the amazing class of 2026. We finally made it to our last convocation, and I think that deserves a round of applause. Let's hear it for the senior class. It feels like just yesterday that I was sitting where you are as a tiny little freshman, wondering what the next 4 years would hold. I'm sure many of you here today can understand that feeling. I also remember looking at the seniors and thinking that they had it all figured out. Now, standing up here as a senior, I can tell you we don't have it all figured out, but we have learned a lot along the way. This summer, like many seniors, I spent a lot of time touring colleges, trying to find the best match for me. I was searching for that elusive, perfect fit. On one of my tours, another student asked the tour guide why he chose that particular school. The tour guide's answer was simple. He said, quote, "It was the best school I got into." I understood the logic of his response, but his answer still stuck with me. I kept asking myself, was that really enough to base such a big decision on? Then it dawned on me that 4 years earlier, I had done something very similar. In the fall of 2021, my parents came to me with a question. They asked me, "Are you interested in going to Williston, like your brother?" I told them I would think about it, so they offered to take me on an official tour of the school, to which I agreed. I wish I could say that I took the tour seriously, but honestly, I only remember 2 things about it. Number 1, the computers looked cool, and number 2, there was a place where you could buy cookies. Those 2 things pretty much sold me on Williston. A few weeks later, when I was stuck in my room with COVID, I filled out the application and submitted it. When the acceptance letter arrived in the spring, I wish I could say that I thought long and hard about my decision to attend Williston, but I didn't agonize over it. I just shrugged my shoulders and said, sure, I'll go. Quick disclaimer, I'm sure my parents are listening to this somewhere, so I should clarify that they did not force me to come here. They only wanted me to look into it and make my own educated decision. I just kind of skipped that part. Long story short, just like the college tour guide, I made my decision in a very simple manner. Looking back on how I made my choice, it could have gone very badly, but I got extremely lucky, and in the fall of 2022, I quickly found myself immersed in the best community I've ever been a part of. Williston is such a special place, full of all different types of people. In my mind, it seems impossible to cater to the needs of students from 24 different countries and 24 different states, but Williston always manages to pull it off. Williston can be a great fit for everyone, no matter who you are or where you're from, and I firmly believe that that's due to the abundance of opportunities here. Whether you grew up in East Hampton or halfway around the world, Williston provides each and every student with a blank canvas. The only caveat is that it is up to each of us to pick up our brush and paint our own unique picture. There are so many opportunities surrounding you, but you have to take it upon yourself to lean into them and take a risk. I know a lot of you are probably thinking, it's not that easy to get out of your comfort zone. And you're not wrong. I vividly remember sitting out there at my first convocation, and if you had told me back then that I would be up here speaking today, I would have thought you were crazy. But here I am, and to me, that's clear evidence that Williston is a place where you can become the person you want to be. Like I said, I know it isn't easy to put yourself out there, but another special quality of Williston, and truly my favorite part, is the people. Everyone here is lucky to have an amazing support system around you, whether you realize it or not. My sophomore year, I had the idea to start a Williston chapter of Best Buddies. For those of you who aren't familiar with Best Buddies, it is an organization dedicated to the inclusion of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I wasn't super confident that my idea would work, but my advisor, Mr. Conroy, encouraged me to go for it. With help from the deans and our club advisor, Dr. Maddock, we successfully started the club. Lots of students joined, and together we've been able to impact both the Williston and local communities. This experience reinforced my belief in the power of Williston. At our school, we truly walk the walk of our motto, purpose, passion, and integrity. So for everyone here today, I hope my experience can inspire you to break out of your shell. Try a new sport, go to a weekend activity, sit with someone new at lunch, go watch the play, even just visit Henry at Health and Wellness. These actions may seem small, but they add up. They shape who you are, and they build our community. As we begin this new year, remember, each of us holds a blank canvas. Some of us may already have a few strokes of colors, while others may be picking up their brush for the first time. But no matter how far along you are, remember Williston will give you all the supplies you need. The brushes, the different colors, the support, the opportunities, but only you can paint your picture. My hope for all of us is that when we reflect on our time at Williston, we can look back at our once blank canvases and see beautiful, colorful paintings made up of bold choices, meaningful relationships, and growth that can only occur when you step outside your comfort zone. So here's to the year ahead, to the risks we take, the people we meet, the bonds we form, the fun we have, and the art we create during our time here. Let's make this year a masterpiece. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Good evening, Williston. The start of a school year is always a time full of emotions. At opening meetings with the faculty, I proposed that students might arrive feeling a bit excited, nervous, curious, or apprehensive. So I'll ask you, students, how many of you have felt this way over just this last week? Those of you who felt or who feel excited and curious, have you talked to your new science teacher, your new English teacher about what's on your mind? Those of you feeling a little nervous or apprehensive, have you found an advisor, a dorm parent, or a coach who you can confide in? I think the theme here is this. No matter what you're feeling, there's an incredible community of adults here to talk to confide in, to learn from, and to know that no matter what, you will be seen, heard, and supported. This evening, I have the pleasure to recognize 5 such individuals. However, I'd be remiss not to take a moment to recognize all of the faculty sitting behind me, and would ask you to take a quick moment to please do the same. With that said, I'd like to recognize 3 members of the faculty who have earned a faculty instructorship, and then 2 faculty who will be celebrating their 25th year here at Williston. The Sandra B. Class of 55 and Joseph C. Messick's instructorship was established in 2001 to recognize a young faculty member's initiatives in and out of the classroom. Over my last 10 years at Williston, and now this year as Dean of Faculty, I've had the privilege of working with some truly remarkable educators. Teachers who not only bring their expertise to their subject, but who also bring heart, clarity, and a deep commitment to their students' growth. This evening, I'd like to recognize one such teacher, a valued member of our science department, coaching staff, and our residential community. Biology's hard, right? To the adults in the audience, I would ask, how many of you can remember the difference between a centriole and a centromere? Sympatric and allopatric speciation, lytic or lysogenic phases. Yet to the students who were in this teacher's class last year, I know these terms, and many more, were thoughtfully explained, differentiated between, and placed into the greater context of the biological story to be told. What sets this teacher apart is their ability to explain these complex biological processes in a way that's clear, logical, and memorable. More than a few students, and likely some in the audience right now, walked into their biology class unsure of science and walked out excited about it, and perhaps having spotted a few butterflies lingering around the lab. This teacher also shines in the relationships she builds. Whether during class discussions, lab groups, or casual conversations and advisory, students feel comfortable, supported, and challenged in the best possible way. One student writes, "This class has allowed me to appreciate the essence of biology, and I'm more comfortable in asking questions since the teacher is both passionate and knowledgeable in the subject." Another adds that this teacher has helped me when I was struggling with grade anxiety. A third builds on this by saying, "I really like this class and feel like I'd see myself taking biology later in life. I found this class fascinating." This connection with the students extends beyond Scott Hall. In the dorm, on dorm in her parlance, she's a steady, positive presence. In the words of dorm head Krista Talbot Saifu, this teacher builds wonderful connections in the dorm. She's a great listener who meets students where they are and shows genuine curiosity about them, their culture, and their background. Her co-coach in both volleyball and basketball, Jess Rohan, simply says, "She sets an example of what it means to be a truly strong and compassionate woman to the young women of Williston." It is my pleasure to award the Sandra B. 55 and Joseph C. Messick's instructorship to biology teacher, advisor, dorm parent coach, and new sophomore class dean, Ms. Kirsten Blazing. The Karen O'Neill Instructorship. Established in 2001 by alumni and friends, the Karen O'Neill Instructorship is named for former Associate Head Karen O'Neill, who, until her departure that year, directed much of the school's program for over 30 years and enabled the school to achieve great progress and to aspire to the highest levels of scholarship and engagement with student success. Now I'd like to take a few moments to recognize a dynamic member of our English department and a deeply valued presence on the field and in the dorm. Reading the student feedback for this teacher is like a tour through all the things that should be going on in a classroom. Students report enjoying doing regular group work, working up at the board, facilitating engaging and informative discussions, spending time doing free writes, and taking and consolidating clear and informative notes. Head of the English department, Matt Leibowitz, says, "This teacher is a consistent positive force on the schoolhouse third floor, and each student is taught with genuine care. They're a wonderful collaborator, always striving to create an engaging and purposeful experience with the students." To get the student perspective, one student writes, "I feel this class has helped me become a better writer. I get lots of feedback about my writing flow and structure, which helps my writing improve every time." Another says, "It was such a great class, and I always look forward to participating in this class. Their style of teaching and smile boosted my energy. You made me love English." My favorite quote, however, is the following: "Sometimes class is a little stressful because they want me to do so much more than what I think is good. They want me to do so much more than what I think is good, because they know you are capable of more than what you'd initially settled for. That belief in their students is pervasive in the comments and feedback that I see and hear about this teacher. Beyond the classroom, Mr. Raffetto notes that in the dorm, this teacher continues to lead as a steady, positive force, sharing late-night laughs, listening when it matters, and building the kinds of relationships that make boarding life meaningful and memorable. On the field hockey field, co-coach Ms. Klump says that this teacher is, and I quote, the best co-coach. They bring positive energy and a terrific sense of humor to every practice and game and find joy in being with the kids, cheering them on, and seeing their growth as athletes. It is my pleasure to award the Karen O'Neill Instructorship to English teacher, dorm head, advisor, and coach, Haas. The Emily N. McFadden Vincent 49 and Bob E. Vincent Instructorship was established in 2007 by Emily N. McFadden Vincent, class of 1949, and her husband Bob to recognize a young faculty member's initiatives in and out of the classroom. Whether students are writing their first lines of Python or troubleshooting a complex problem with their video game, this teacher has a way of breaking things down clearly, calmly, and with just enough humor to keep things fun. To quote two of her students, one says, "It was super fun to code my own games in their entirety and to gain more exposure to coding, which I intend to pursue in college." A second puts it succinctly, "I really like this class." This teacher creates a classroom culture where students feel safe asking questions, are encouraged to take risks, and inspired to collaborate in group work. Whether it's debugging together or designing an app as a team, students learn how to think critically and work collectively. Mr. Malo points out that this teacher has a hunger to grow as a professional, thinking collaboratively about what could be done to enhance and improve her lessons and pedagogy. She has also wonderfully helped guide the school's math team, and especially the annual Whitaker Bement Girls Mathematics Competition, which we host. As Ms. Poland puts it, this teacher rebuilt the robotics afternoon program. Under her leadership, our robotics team has grown in confidence, communication, ability, and sheer excitement for what they're building. Ms. Lucia notes that this teacher helped incorporate team building games frequently, and that she generously shared her personal collection of logic games and puzzles. Both coding and robotics require precision. A typo here and the code crashes. Incorrectly soldering a servo, the robotic arms can't pick up the competition ball. In track and field, in hurdling, just like coding and robotics, it's all about precision. 8 steps to the first hurdle, 3 steps between each subsequent barrier. 2 years ago, I was lucky enough to coach with this teacher, and she was adept at guiding our hurdlers through the delicate balance and speed and precision, the explosive movements and grace, the tenacity and sportsmanship. At the end of a long day in the classroom, robotics lab or on the track, this teacher would often end her evening at Hathaway House. Former dorm head Mr. Rilla speaks highly of her there, saying, "She made Hathaway feel like a family home. She invited students into her apartment for homemade dinner nights. She baked muffins and coffee cakes for them on her weekend duties, and her cat Lila served it as an emotional support animal for so many of the girls." Whether in the classroom, the robotics lab, the dorm, students know they have someone who believes in their potential. It is for these reasons that it is my pleasure to award the Emily N. McFadden Vincent and Bob E. Vincent Instructorship to Miss Jessie Johnson. One of the special traditions at Convocation is honoring faculty who have committed 25 years of their careers to Williston by presenting them with a Williston Chair. This year, we honor 2 outstanding members of the faculty. First, I'd like to recognize Ms. Klump. First, I'd like to honor history and global studies teacher, field hockey coach, Woldhouse dorm parent, and slightly embarrassed Miss Sarah Klump. To describe Sarah with just those titles or responsibilities, however, is to miss what makes her great and doesn't capture what makes us so lucky that she has called Williston home for the last 25 years. Instead, I'd much rather let the words of her colleagues, students, and advisees do justice to her talents, vivacity, and impact. Mr. Doubleday speaks to Ms. Klump's knowledge and tenacity in the classroom when he says, "Sarah is a master teacher who cares deeply about her students. She approaches her craft with professionalism combined with a great sense of humor. She's never afraid to speak her mind and frequently lets everyone know exactly what she thinks." Mr. Johnson builds on this by saying, "I should say something about the high standards she sets and maintains for both herself and her students, the ease with which she seems to balance everything that being a boarding school teacher requires. But honestly, I'm just glad to call her a friend. And I know that whenever I get to sit at the same lunch table as her, the rest of my day is going to be just a little bit better." Over 25 years, Ms. Klump has worked with a host of other history teachers, including serving as head of the department. In that time, she's been a role model for others, evidenced best when Mr. Saifu says, "Sarah was a mentor for me when I first started teaching. She, like many teachers 20 years ago, would keep these huge binders to organize each lesson. Seeing those binders and the constant changing materials within the binders helped me understand the bigger picture and the important realization that lessons get revised all the time." Ms. Klump is both a role model for her peers and an advocate for her students. One student writes, "During my freshman year, I found it hard to advocate for myself, but I could always count on Ms. Klump to help speak up when I needed help." A second follows up with, "Mrs. Klump welcomed me right into Williston like it had been my home for the past couple of years. She's the light in the room, and her bright energy is contagious. She's helped me not only grow as a student, but also as a person." Of her work on the field, Haas, who we just recognized moments ago and is often twinning with Ms. Klump, says, "Sarah Klump is one of the strongest, smartest, funniest, and most inspirational people I've ever met. She's a key ingredient in the magic of Williston. Getting paired to coach field hockey with her was like hitting the jackpot. She's a leader, friend, and mentor, a true gem." After a long day of teaching history out of those binders, a spirited conversation with Mr. Johnson at lunch, field hockey practice with Haas, Mrs. Klump can be found as a steady and caring presence in Woldhouse each week. Woldhouse dorm head Miss Marsland says, "Sarah Klump is quite simply the best person to have on staff. Team player, funny, empathetic, conscientious. For years, she's been joining me in collecting silly gifts for Woldentine's Day. She and I laugh until we cry as we watch students open these ridiculous presents. I just love working with her." And the residents of Woldhouse echo that. One writes, "I remember the first day I met her. Her smile was seen from across the quad. Ever since then, she's helped me in every facet of my life, and I'm beyond grateful for the relationship that we've built." I'll end with just one more thought. Longtime colleague, co-coach, and friend Sarah Sawyer astutely sums up Miss Klump when she says, "Sarah's an intelligent, funny, and loving friend who handles all the challenges of life and teaching with a noble spirit. She always reminds me to be fully alive and brave, and I've been honored to teach and coach with her all these years." To be fully alive and brave, a reminder we would all benefit from. Mrs. Klump, Sarah, for all that was said above, for all the other quotes and sentiments I couldn't fit into this speech, and for everything you do for Williston, thank you and congratulations. Next, I'd like to recognize our Director of College Advising, Mrs. Emily McDowell. I've been lucky enough to know Mrs. McDowell for the past 10 years. In that time, she has always been a staunch advocate of her students, supportive of her colleagues in the office, and an unwaveringly friendly face on the quad or in the dining commons. Again, I'd like to turn to the words of her peers and her students to truly capture what she means and has meant to us. Mr. Cunha starts off by saying, "Emily has an unwavering level of care and commitment for each student that she works with in the college process." Building on that, Ms. Tancarl-Fontaine adds, "Working with Emily in the environment she has created has been such a pleasure. Her warm, nurturing, and inclusive personality instantly made me feel supported." Mr. Lonergan highlights her unique connection with alums of all ages. He writes, When visiting campuses, she really enjoys connecting with alumni of those schools, and she keeps in touch with recent and older alumni that she worked with 10, 15, 20 years ago. Last year, their office went to Blue Door Gatherings in Holyoke, a lunch takeout spot and catering business run by alum Lauren Bauman. Mrs. McDowell not only stays in touch, but supports our alumni. It's pretty cool. In my time knowing Mrs. McDowell, I've mostly known her as a member of, and then a director of, what was then called the College Counseling Office, and now the College Advising Office. While admirable in its own right, that's a disservice to the myriad ways Mrs. McDowell has left her mark on Williston. Ms. Brousseau provides us with a bit more history. She writes, Emily is a versatile, thoughtful, and caring member of our community. She sees the best in everyone. She has shared her passion for art and culture while teaching art history, and more recently, Williston-led school trips. And I'm still quoting Miss B here, I've had the privilege to witness her coaching firsthand, starting a fledgling crew program when she first began, then transitioning to the pool deck for both swimming and water polo. I love being neighbors with her in Mem East and could always count on her support, mediating with students, and baking from scratch. Miss B continues, she has a knack for knowing when you need a handwritten, encouraging note. Her perspective is one I always seek out when I need personal or professional advice. She's a phenomenal role model, a strong leader, a thoughtful colleague, and a friend. Throughout these quotes, you can hear the impact that Mrs. McDowell has made on her colleagues, the adults in the community, and on our students and alums. I'd like to read two final quotes that bring home this duality. Mrs. King, former coordinator for student services in the College Advising Office, who just retired last year, was ecstatic in her praise of working with Mrs. McDowell. She begins, and I quote, she made sure every day was filled with laughter, and why work here felt like fun. Emily was a huge part of my kids' lives, and, like hundreds of other students, we're so grateful. And I'll end with a quote, excerpts from a poem, really, that one of those kids, for whom Mrs. McDowell made an indelible difference in his life. The following are the words of Chase Tangway, son of Mrs. King and graduate of the class of 2015. The poem is simply titled, Mrs. McDowell. There are times in life where one must walk. We walk down twisted or straight paths, and we all end up in different places. There are some who travel the paths of others to help them along. These unselfish individuals are the pillars who support the way we live. Without people like this, the journeys of many others could not have been forged. You've made my life, like many before me, possible. Thank you. Mrs. McDowell, Emily, we're thankful for everything you have done, everything you have given to Williston, and for everything you have done for the literal thousands of graduates in the past 25 years. We are better for you being a part of this school and this community. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Policia, for those testimonials, and thank you to those faculty who were recognized for their purpose, passion, integrity, and in 2 cases, longevity. It's really marvelous to hear about that level of dedication, and that's what this is all about. It's my pleasure now to introduce our speaker, Brendan Helwig. He graduated from Williston in 2014 as valedictorian of his class, along with myriad other academic prizes accumulated along the way. Following Williston, he attended Yale University, where he was active in numerous clubs and organizations, like the Yale Political Union, and he penned numerous articles for the Yale Daily News. Following Yale, he earned dual degrees from Harvard's Business School and Kennedy School of Government. Before co-founding his own company, Brendan applied his considerable skills to working in Baltimore out of the mayor's office, increasing job opportunities in the public sector. He's accomplished an incredible amount for a young guy, but then again, adults at Williston always had the sense and feeling about him that when he was a high school student, he was about a decade beyond his years. I'm personally appreciative of his service to Williston as a member of the Heads Visiting Council, his commitment to giving back, and the example he sets for our under 30 alumni out there. Oh yeah. Even though he was voted, quote, most likely to perish without tandem. Do you remember that? Yeah. That's the yearbook. Brendan graciously returned today. I thought he was coming from New York City. He literally flew from across the country at some crazy hour in the morning to share his remarks with us today. So let's give Brendan a warm Williston welcome home.
Well, I just turned 30, so I don't know about the under 30s, so I feel old. But hello, Wildcats. The last time I spoke at this podium, I was asking my classmates to please write an article for the Willistonian. I was the editor, and we needed a review on the latest Tandem Coffee menu items, and then also some investigative reporting on what really goes on in East Hampton City Hall. Today, I'm here to welcome you to a new year of possibilities at Williston. I hope you'll savor the moment, and I hope you'll savor this year. When Mr. Hill asked me to be the convention speaker, I started reflecting on my time at Williston, not just for the sake of advice, but to decide what truly made a lasting difference on my life. Rather than sharing generic tips, I wanted to tell you about one lesson from Williston that genuinely changed me. During my time here, in addition to the Willistonian, I ran cross country very slowly. I built sets in tech theater and ran lighting for the dance shows. I interned in my hometown mayor's office in Holyoke for a 22-year-old mayor, which to me was really inspiring. But coming from a family of actors and playwrights, what I really wanted was a big part in the winter play. I tried out for Muddle Chemsoil in Fiddler on the Roof, the tailor who defies the arranged marriage expectations to wed Tevye's daughter Tzeitel, showing what love really means against all obstacles. Instead, I got caught as Mendel, the rabbi's son, who's a good match on paper, but who has the personality of a brick wall. I was disappointed. I had auditioned just well enough to have a name instead of Russian guard number 3, but I wondered if I would waste months of rehearsals just to have a handful of lines. My theater teacher at Williston, Emily Didkovsky, gave the advice that helped me through the disappointment and that I've carried throughout my career. She told me that there are no small parts. It's up to you to choose what you'll make of your time on the stage. At first, I didn't believe her. I thought it was a consolation prize for a game I'd lost. But she was right, and I saw it play out again and again throughout my life. She was right. There are no small parts. It's up to you to choose what you'll make of your time on the stage. What does that mean? First, small parts are where you learn and become excellent. After I graduated college, I moved to Baltimore and joined the mayor's office. My first time in the city was my job interview, and I knew nothing coming into a big city that had struggled over the years with violence, addiction, and economic decline. My mayor would later be arrested by the FBI and IRS for a scandal involving children's books, but I'll save that for another speech. Long story short, pay your taxes. The story I told myself was that I would make a difference through the big moments. When I briefed the mayor on a vital policy change, or when I asked the perfect gotcha question in a hearing with a department head about something you could measure in the millions. It felt good to command attention in a suit at a podium, kind of like this one, and it felt good to tell myself I had a big part. But month after month, I realized I wasn't learning anything from these seemingly important meetings. We were going through the motions of bigness, and I had nothing to show for it. I had authority from my mayor's office pin, but I wasn't living with curiosity. So I changed course. I embraced the small parts. I spent every Wednesday night riding in an ambulance and getting dinner in firehouses so I could listen to emergency medical technicians about the support that they needed. I spent afternoons investigating late payments for nonprofits so that the city wouldn't push them out of business. And when the city was hit by a ransomware cyber attack, so I'm glad some of you are taking IT and cyber classes, that's great, I embraced the humble work of logging all 214 city services so we could track what had actually stopped working. In doing so, I actually learned the inner workings of government. And I found that I could contribute best when I took the time to listen and to learn. These small parts are where I learned to be a startup founder too. Founding a company is all about listening to the customer, to learn what they really need with empathy, honesty, and a desire to serve. I listened to Baltimore city government workers about their challenges hiring and retaining their colleagues. I spoke to over 100 local government leaders to listen to their problems building the workforce they need to get the trash picked up and their potholes filled. I was their scribe, they were the heroes. I used my Willistonian skills to ask the right questions so they could feel comfortable and share what keeps them up at night. It turns out, when you talk to 100 people, carefully noting down the shared problems, there's a business in there. My time in Baltimore led me to my calling as a founder, and by embracing the small parts and asking the right questions, I learned what I needed to build. Second, small parts can make a huge difference. You can be the showstopper. I still laugh thinking of my friend Henry when I was at Williston as the porter in Macbeth, who had maybe 3 minutes as this intoxicated fool stumbling across the stage in a play. The play was mostly about curses and murder, but those 3 minutes were unforgettable. In Baltimore, I learned how to take the small part as a meeting facilitator among the lead players of department heads so they could come to the right decisions with my help. When COVID struck Baltimore, as in just about everywhere else, nobody was prepared for the scale of the challenge. The city leadership needed to make a plan, and the deputy mayor brought me in as a glorified note taker to facilitate the discussion. I learned that this facilitation enabled its own kind of leadership. Leadership is not authority. Leadership is convening and catalyzing towards a shared mission. So I sat and listened to Jason, Letitia, and Mayor Young pulling on the threads where they disagreed. I was the youngest person in the room by 2 decades, but I was the only one without a big part. They were all leads. That gave me the ability to take a step back and help them shine. The mayor gave me the assignment to facilitate a proposal between the health department and the economic development office for a Rockefeller Foundation grant. And these meetings became the Baltimore Health Corps, a program I helped grow to 300 people, 300 public health workers in just about a year who formed the core of the pandemic response for the city. We raised $12 million in funds from the Rockefeller Foundation through a grant I stayed up all night writing. The Baltimore Ravens contributed, which was cool to me. The federal government joined in and others. And through that facilitation, the program was a success. The White House in 2021 recognized the Baltimore Health Corps as a national model for embedding racial equity in large-scale employment development. But I wasn't hired to lead a 300-person program. By taking my small part seriously, I earned the trust to design and scale a program that became the cornerstone of my early career. That's what I learned at Williston. Do your small part, and do it well. You might be surprised at how big of an impact you can have. And third, small parts are fun too. They're an amazing opportunity to support your friends. And the reason for that, you're part of a bigger team. When you're not on stage, that's your time to cheer for your classmates and cheer for your friends. The offstage camaraderie is infectious. While you're in the spotlight this year and every year to follow, I hope you'll be locked in on being the showstopper, on turning your 3 minutes into the very best moment of yourself. And when your lines are finished, I hope you'll take the time to celebrate your friends and help them be the best versions of themselves. When you embrace the small part mentality, leading becomes all about helping other people shine. As a founder, leading and growing a team, it's my job to help every one of them be the best versions of themselves. I invest in coaching them, calling out their successes in public, and spotting places where they can grow so I can counsel them in private. It's my job to support them and not the other way around. So where does that take us? The small parts are where you learn. The small parts are where you grow. The small parts are where you lead. The small parts are where you serve. And so I hope you'll cherish the small parts this year as you cherish this year together. And what does this mean for your senior year? I have a challenge for you. I challenge you to try something you're not good at yet, but you want to explore. I challenge you to try something new and measure yourself only on whether it brings you joy. I challenge you to commit yourself wholeheartedly to your moments on stage and make your lines count instead of counting your lines. And I challenge you to support your friends in the moments they shine and in the moments they need your help to shine brighter. And in the interests of coming full circle, the Willistonian really needs a review of the latest tandem coffee menu items and some investigative reporting on what really goes on in East Hampton City Hall. I hope that someone who's never tried journalism takes a shot this year and writes one of those pieces. Savor this moment and savor this year. Welcome to Williston 2025. Thank you.
Well, Alex and Brendan, you guys both gave us some great words to think about and mull over. Brendan, all I can say is I'm glad you graduated from Williston and not some school to the south or to the north. I want to thank all of you sitting here. It's been a long week. There have been a lot of meetings. There have been a lot of convocations together to bring us together. That's all intentional. You've been great audiences. So we're going to join in a rousing rendition of O Williston, the alma mater. Faculty will recess out, and then we'll go off to our class dinners. Again, thank you for being a great audience this week.
Please rise and join in singing the alma mater.